Welcome to the Awakening Podcast, episode number 400. So we're 400 episodes in, and who better to do it than with my good friend Arnold? And you'll find all our episodes on awakeningpodcast.org. We both have school groups, they'll be in the show notes, and you'll find everything about Arnold on braingym.fitness, me on roycohen.com. So, what are we telling them today, Arnold?
Yeah, something which seems to be happening, at least after my checking, all over the world, and that's elections. Whether it's for presidents, governments, local institutions, there's actually a lot happening all over the world.
So, Ireland just had their presidential elections, and it was the strangest thing that has ever happened because there was a few candidates, but they all started dropping out, or there was kind of controversy that made them drop out. And I know we touched on it previously when we were talking about Conor McGregor, and that it's a rigged system, that someone can't just put themselves in the race or go through some sort of, that you'd need 20 councillors. And apparently the councillors were told, don't accept anybody else. So they all had their cronies. So you've kind of two political parties. Before, we used to have, left and right, Fine Gael, Fianna Fáil. They're together more than 10 years now at this stage. They had their person. All the rest, Sinn Féin, People Before Profits, and a few others, they came together. They had their one. And it was the strangest thing ever. There was 13% of spoilt votes, which has never happened. Previously, last time it was 1.2, and usually spoiled votes is sometimes because people make a mistake in how they do it. They don't really understand. Instead of putting an X, they put a tick or something like that, and their vote is counted as spoilt, even though they didn't intentionally want to do that. So they were saying that from the previous, say, 1.2%, at least half of them weren't intentionally spoilt. These were intentionally spoilt. Lines putting through, not mine, or they'd put a box who they'd want, just saying EU puppets and everything. And the strange thing is, it was like Joanne Connolly got in, she got 63% of the votes. But there was some parts in Dublin that the spoiled votes would have came second. There was more votes for the spoiled votes, so it came in second place in some places, if you count them as if it's a thing.
So it's Mr. Spoiled votes.
Exactly. And there was only 46% voted as well, which is basically, that's people saying we've lost faith in the system because we know it's rigged. And that's the worst thing. I think the fact that people went out of their way, came out and said, hey, this is rigged, and they kind of showed it. I'm not sure has there been such a high percentage of spoiled votes anywhere, but I know it's the highest ever in Ireland.
Well, I never heard about that, but I think it's a very interesting action, and unfortunately, I'm inclined to say that it makes sense, because it's not only what I was going to say. It's not only rigged. Well, as you just described, and I don't know the details, but I totally believe you. But it's everywhere. But there's also the turnout, like how many people show up. That is declining everywhere. What is also declining, it's at the lowest rate ever. It's the trust of the people in the government. So it's those, non-valid votes. It's the turnout. It's everything combined shows that people have totally lost faith. That's it. Yeah? Whether it's 13% show in their way, I think it's a way of showing their dissatisfaction. But also this turnout, like, I don't know about Ireland, but in all countries, if you talk 20, 30 years ago, what was the turnout? 70, 80%? And most people would go vote. So only a few people, whether you were sick or anything, because they didn't have the system that somebody could authorize someone else. But it was only very few people didn't. So again, and it's not just Ireland and Netherlands, where I'm from. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And basically, I think the system doesn't work anymore.
And the thing is, most countries, like we've got RTE, Radio Television Éireann, which is the main broadcaster, and they push the agenda. So they're doing what the government tells them. So there's a lot of the taxpayers' money go into this, and they just push it. There's one radio station, Red FM, and they seem to be the only one kind of pushing back. They even discussed about why do you use pencils. I'm not sure it's just the same in every country, but in Ireland it's pencils. And I always thought, hey, they can rub them out. And what they said the reason is because if it gets wet, the ink disappears. And they said it's the same. So they done a test, and that's a lie as well. And the guy Neil Prendeville had, I'm not sure is he the leader, no, because the way they do it now is like they hover the leadership. Micheál Martin, some people call him Micheál Martin, and he started complaining about like all the asylum seekers, all the crime that's happening. And he said, what would you do? He says, I'd close the border. And he was like, a real face that, haven't you no empathy? You could tell that he knew he was going to be asked that. And each time inside the government, when they're talking, all they're doing is laughing. All they're doing is when somebody actually, because there is a few politicians that are really trying to make change, and all they do is laugh at them. And it's like the bully boy. It's like they just make fun of people and nothing happens. And the thing is, because it's televised, people are seeing that. And it's like, I've never seen such hatred for politicians. Like when I was younger, you kind of thought they had your back and they were doing it better. Then you kind of hit your 30s and you realize that's not the case. But like the hatred towards the Irish government and all the parties, and the same with Keith Starmer in the UK. Such hatred everywhere you see it. Like, that's unprecedented. You know, it's just like, I don't know how many, it's the same in Holland and most places. Like, so that just shows everywhere. It's not just that, you can't do nothing. It's like, we know you're crooks, but there's no control. And the police are behind them. So when people are protesting or objecting to it, straight away, they're being horses in the UK where they attack them. And in Ireland, same thing. Like the police beat up the peaceful protesters, which just shows, I mean, they're loyal to the dollar. They kind of might have a mortgage and everything. So you have to kind of feel a bit of empathy, but at the same time, if they all stuck together, they just turn around and start facing the other direction, but it never happens.
Yes, and it shows that it's a theater. It's not real people. Really, it used to be people really care about your country, and maybe even a larger frame of, well, in Europe being part of the EU, or they cared. They cared about your country. They cared about certain topics. They cared about the well-being of people, and they care about the future of their children, of their grandchildren. And now that seems to be gone. It's totally gone. They only care about whether they get their position again and an income and a salary, and most of the time they get a car and a driver and everything. They get a very, very easy lifestyle. But the care for the citizens is totally gone. And that's why people have and are disconnected from it. And it can be on an individual case, but it can also be in large groups, like we discussed last week in our episode around youth. What you see basically all over the world, I'm not kidding, it's really all over the world, that young people, Gen Z, they are like, they totally lost it because they see that these politicians don't give a damn about their future. Whether it's about not having jobs, whether it's about drought and that there's no water, there's no food, there's no benefit, there's no education. People would really care. And when I grew up, whatever, I knew, I could tell from our prime ministers and people, they really cared about these people. No, they don't give a shit.
And if we look at, because we had an episode on the asylums, refugees, and last week, unfortunately, a 10-year-old child girl was raped by one of them, brought into the hotel, and now City West Hotel, and there's, I don't know, something like 2,000 people in these, and the people are protesting outside. Unfortunately, they're attacking the police with fireworks and throwing bricks and stuff like that. They broke some policeman's leg, but then the police are pepper spraying them and attacking them. But the new president, she's for open borders. And even in the UK, I saw another case, and it was like the woman was working there, and on her way back, the guy came after her and stabbed her something like 16 times or something like that with a screwdriver, and she died a few days later as a 5-year-old child. And when you have the people recording all of this, it's like a lot of them, I know they're coming from asylums or prisons, but they're not normal people. And they're just letting them in, and there's something like, I don't know how many thousands of homeless people now in Ireland. So they've just thrown the Irish out in the street, and then they've let them in. So, like, when you say about elections matter, like, this is a politician that's basically, like, for this. Like, what you want is you want something that says, hey, stop this, don't let anyone else in, and deport them all, but they won't. So it's only going to get worse. And the EU has an agenda that they're pushing across all of Europe, and they all have to comply, because whatever way the money, it's all about money, follow the money. Each country then has to take them in. And if they don't take them in, like Hungary, and I think Romania is the same, they get massive fines. So you have to do it, which is pathetic. Like, oh, you let in these people that we know is destroy our country, and if you don't, you get $1 million a day fine or whatever.
Well, or you don't get any subsidies or any other money because, well, it's not true for Holland, but for most countries, they are a net receiver of the EU money. So if they say you have to do this, it's blackmail. You have to do this, otherwise we stop giving you money. But it's also, you touched upon housing, which I think is one of the main issues, well, at least in Europe. I don't know the rest of the world, but in the Netherlands, there's a shortage of 400,000 houses. That means, let's say in each house there are 2-3 people. So we're talking about more than 1 million people who have no houses. Well, we discussed it in various episodes where young people cannot leave the house, or people who want to get divorced, and then one want to get in a house, and all these things are not possible because there are no houses. Well, it can easily be solved, but they find all kinds of nitrous oxygen and everything, like, or nature, and like, no, we cannot build houses, we cannot do it. They're obstructing it, yeah, because building houses and well, it creates work, it creates income for many industries, but it also creates well-being, because if you're a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old, you're still living with your parents, that's not nice. So it's one of the biggest issues. But like you said, in those media orchestrated interviews and everything, nobody's touching on the housing. So they're all touching on bullshit items and not on the real items which have an impact on people every day. So that is why that 13% plus what you said, and like, again, it's the statistics. Trust is at an all-time low everywhere, all over the world. I think we basically should get another system, because this system, well, if it would happen to your company, or if it would happen to your podcast, or if you would say you're bankrupt. You would totally say it's not working anymore. You got to figure out something else. And they just continue.
Like the banks, you get a bailout if you fail, but the ordinary citizens don't. It's like, yeah, good luck. And we've had this conversation ourselves off air, but I think it's very relevant. Like, even in Poland, when people are buying houses, it's like, oh, your first house, you get a low interest, and people kind of think, oh, it's great. But the prices have doubled and tripled everywhere. Like, and the salaries haven't. And I've got some statistics. But before I touch on that, like the taxes, like a lot of houses have VAT at 13.5% or different, but then there's the labor and all the VAT and taxes on that and all the, like, there's a load of stuff that is bought with the VAT. You're talking 50% plus is taxed. So you remove that, you could build the houses a lot cheaper. The other thing is in Ireland, not just in Ireland, but a lot of, there was no planning permission needed for these temporary accommodation places, right? So they built all these centres. They had nothing for the Irish when they were getting kicked out of their houses, and they let BlackRock come in and buy all the stuff for pennies on the dollar without paying any tax. I mean, the books on this, all exposed. So, like, and they're doing that all over Europe and all over the world. BlackRock are buying stuff, and then the rents are 2 and 3 times what they were. So people in Ireland are paying 2,000 for a house, renting a house, and sometimes even 2.5 grand, which is insane. Like, that's 30 grand a year. And that's after tax.
Net, yeah.
Exactly, after tax. Like, you're, so just because
that is actually the reason. Well, and it's not the main reason. One of the reasons that I have a Dutch passport, and I took 8 years care of my mother, and I lived in her house. I provided 7x24 full support, which was not provided by the government, and it was not paid. So I did it as a volunteer. Well, not freely, but I had to do. There was no other choice. But then she died. I had to sell the house. There was no house for me. Really, there was no house. It's exactly like you said. The rental market is like, yeah, you have to pay thousands and thousands, which I don't have. So that's not. And as an entrepreneur with fluctuating income, you don't get a mortgage. So I could not buy a house, even if it was there. So it's like, that's why I left the country, because I need a house. And I'm not the only one. It's happening for all kinds of reasons. So this is not, we're talking about an exceptional case. No, I experienced it myself. Yeah, so, and there's nobody helping you. There's nobody supporting you. Said, oh, Arnold, you did a lot of community support. You helping. By the way, I paid a lot of taxes throughout my life. No, bad luck, guy. Goodbye.
Same with me. I get nothing. And I had lots of companies. I paid loads of tax. Not a sausage. They'll take it off you. They won't give it back. And just on Spain, because I've had a friend, an Argentinian friend that moved to Spain, and they were like over 6 months trying to find a place. And I know other people as well, because of the laws that are protecting the tenants. You have to pay a year up front. How many people have that money set aside?
Nobody.
It's like, it's unreal. And what happens then is they give them like squatters' rights. Somebody goes in and you can't evict them. And the government is all in favor. Do you think they're doing that to the BlackRock properties and everything? Not a hope. It's a different law for all their stuff. So they're doing it intentionally, get rid of the small landlord. And so just on the property, just Ireland, right? So it's saying here that only 117,276 new homes were built between 2011 and 2022. I remember at one stage, at the peak before the whole crash, Ireland was up to 90,000 a year. So that's just a little over that in 11 years. You know, and then the same way the population grew by 560,000. House prices risen by 75% since 2012, while the wages increased only 27%. And 14.5.
Huge, yeah? Yeah, I'm sure.
No, but it's
75. Huh? How are people supposed to pay that?
You see, the thing before, it used to be like 5 times your salary was kind of the mortgage, and then people were doing like a 20-year mortgage. But then it became 10 times, and now they're doing 40-year mortgage. And everybody goes through some sort of turmoil in their life, and they just come in and they go, thanks very much, that's ours now. And then you're out on your arse, and you can't even afford the rent because everything's been taken off you, and they just throw you on the street, and you get nothing. But anyone coming in on the boat, oh yeah, here's a hotel, free accommodation. You want driving lessons, no problem. You want massage, you want ping pong tables, no, everything. So you're treated like royalty, but our own citizens are scum of the earth. And that's not just in Ireland, that's everywhere. And it's easy. But you have all these muppets in government that are orchestrating. I mean, they're not in control. We know they're not in control. There's no way that they'd be in control because they haven't got the IQ for it. There's somebody pulling the strings. And I've heard of loads of cases where they knew who was next to come into government and everything. It's all orchestrated. There's a power that be that's controlling the whole lot. They're putting the people in place and they're doing what they're told. Okay, I know that's happening with France. Macron, I thought he was gone at one stage, then he's back again. And it's like, you're just looking and you're going, if I look how many countries I look at and I think that's a decent leader that's far as people, it'd be Hungary and Russia. They're the only two I can actually see that are okay. I mean, yeah, Trump, he does 80% of things are good. There's a lot of stuff they're exposing and everything. But there's other stuff like, yeah, we'll take over Gaza, we'll take Greenland and all that. That's like, what's that about? Like, I mean, to even say that is insane, eh?
He's planning war in Venezuela now, but look at with the tariffs. What he's doing, he's using it as a poker game, and he's very good in negotiation. But that means from China to any country. I read about India that a lot of businesses in India they're kind of bankrupt because they used to ship their spices, for instance, from India to wherever. But if you get a 20% tariff, nobody's gonna buy your spices anymore. So it becomes unaffordable for people to export, but it also becomes unaffordable for the average American because the prices are too high that they cannot afford. But these, well, let's call them the strings, they don't care because for them, whether the price is 100 times higher, they don't care. They got enough money. Yeah? But the average American is in a very, very dire state. Yeah? So it's really everywhere. But it's like, that's why I say, we really need another system because this system is so rigged and it's so not working. And it doesn't matter whether you're old, whether you're young, whether you have a car or not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't work for anyone anymore except for the guys pulling the strings.
And it's like the thing as well as when you look at the price at the pump, how much petrol you're paying, and next it goes through the roof. It's a war in Iraq. And then it's the war in Russia. Then it's Venezuela. It's like what we're all getting. It's like, so if we're getting our oil here and that war ends, then should that not return? No. Everything is done to, like the gas, the electricity. Every single thing is done to make us slaves. We're all slaves. We're all slaves. And every time, like if you talk to people, then very few are actually cruising along. Everyone is struggling, except for the muppets that are running the
strings.
Yeah.
But that is everywhere, like you said. I have a Dutch passport. For as long as I can remember, the Netherlands was in the top 10 of richest countries in the world. Highest level of happiness, everything. I doubt whether we're now at the top 10. Because there are now lines and we're building extra food banks in the Netherlands. And they're the retired people who need to be brought there because otherwise they have no food. So, and again, it's like for most of my life, we're one of the richest countries in the world. Now that's gone. Everybody's standing in line at the food bank. So it's destroying everything. So that's why I would say is like, hey, we need a new system of governance, and much more with people power. And I know it's not ideal, but at least we're like a referendum with they have in Switzerland and in other countries, because people, we need to take ownership and not say, oh, the politicians will take care of our country. They will take care of our future. They will take care of education of our children and make sure we get jobs. Well, I have a surprise for you. They won't. So we as citizens, we need to do it ourselves. We got to create independence of those guys pulling the strings, because it's getting worse and worse by the day. Young people are waking up all over the world, and they're seeing that. They see that their future is ruined if they do nothing. And they already, in Nepal, in Madagascar, in other countries, it's happening that they say, hey, we want to be part of the government, and we take responsibility, and we want to have our ideas into the government. So those are beginning signs that we need to take our responsibility. Responsibility is the price of freedom. And it's not that, oh, I'm not responsible. It's I go to the vote and the politician. They already destroyed most of the countries in the world. So take initiative, take back control, and start doing it ourselves.
I've touched on it sometimes, but the only way I can see it happening is like a blockchain technology, but it is not connected with the fiat system, and that we all get a certain amount, like we all have 1 million, and then that's used between people, and there's no monopolies allowed, like they do with, they just keep buying companies and everything, like, Facebook buying Instagram, buying WhatsApp and everything, and then pretending that it's encrypted and it's not, and stop all this control, because people are looking at all these kind of the Gates and the Trump as if like they're gods, when in reality they're the ones destroying it. So all I say is we need new things, not attack the existing, but create new, and let the masses flow towards it.
And we got to do it.
Exactly. No, you can't expect someone else. We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah, but that's a huge shift, because the whole upbringing system and whole education system has been pushing us to just be obedient and just wait until someone else tells me what to do. And so that in itself, and I've had that experience in my coaching and my training, that is a huge shift from being like, I just wait until somebody else tells me what to do, is like, no, I take initiative. I'm going to do it myself. Oh, what is that? Huh?
Yeah. And a lot of the episodes, whether they're with Peter Wilson, Peter Stone, B.B. Backus, a lot about sovereignty, natural law, common law, realizing your power, realizing the power of the signature. I would encourage people to go in and look at them, because when you realize you were born free, and these Muppets, they don't have control over you unless you actually accept it and don't accept it. So that's all for this week. Episode 400. So thanks very much for all those that have been listening. Really appreciate it. You find everything about Arnold on braingym.fitness, and about me, roycollin.com. And we've the SKOOL groups. You find a link in the description. Until next week, take care.